I think it's really important every once in a while to have a new perspective on each of our individual lives. There are times when I'm scrolling on my phone and I look up and 40 minutes have passed, and I realize that my entire world for those 40 minutes has been my telephone. It's really important to gain some perspective and remind ourselves that we are part of something much bigger than just right here, Prince of Peace 2025. Hopefully you have felt that during this Holy Disruptors sermon series. You've gotten that long historical perspective on the good things that people have done in the name of Jesus for the sake of our world. Hopefully that's been part of it. Today, I am really excited to talk to you and culminate this Holy Disruptor series by talking about the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and who we are and what we are a part of. The ELCA is young, if you think about it. It's only 37 years old. It's part of a bunch of predecessor bodies that have merged. But we also have structures in place and relationships that are literally global. Last month, I was elected to go to church-wide assembly, and that is the largest legislative body of the ELCA. They gather once every 3 years for 8 or 9 days. 7 or 8 days. It felt like 15. For 7 days to vote on matters, pass legislation, gather together, but everything is rooted in worship. Worship every day with 800 or 900 people, hearing from our partner organizations. We are 65 synods, and each synod was present at a giant table in the convention center, and each synod sent between 11 and 25 voting members. Everything that we did was by parliamentary procedure. You may know that phrase because that's how we run our annual meetings. So if you can imagine just 80 of us trying to have deliberate, good-hearted conversation with 2 mics, imagine 800 and some people having that same dialogue. There were 12 for and against mics on the floor. Beyond all the voting we did, the listening, the deep discerning, there was also phenomenal opportunities to eat together, to meet Lutherans from small towns in Ohio, suburban congregations spread all over our country, college ministries, queer-specific ministries. It was intense, exhausting, and incredibly inspiring. I'm so proud of the ELCA. I'm so proud of the ELCA, what we stand for, and how we lovingly dialogue and disagree with each other. So what did we accomplish at the church-wide assembly? Big things. We passed a social statement. You've heard me talk about it, the civic life and faith document. Our social statements are teachings that we are encouraged to read and follow to help us understand what the church says about how we are to act in public life, what our response to gun violence should be, abortion. There are several social statements. And this one on civic life and faith is incredibly important and timely. It encourages us to be faithful citizens, to not step away and pretend like everything's fine, but to engage, not as a political party, but as people of faith. And it emphasizes that Christians are called to participate in the public square, bringing our values of love and justice and compassion. The statement emphasized the common good. It gives us some really powerful language and directives around how to navigate a polarized country, how we find common ground, and be part of a whole new way of being together as a country that doesn't demonize our political opponents. And it talks about how we, as an ELCA Lutheran Church, are not just individuals sitting in a church, but we have a role in the public life. Your 1 hour on Sunday, or for some of you who volunteer several hours here at church, your 1 hour on Sunday, several hours on Sunday should translate into you being activated into the world, speaking truth to power. It's a beautiful social statement. It is very long, but it has an executive summary that you might appreciate reading. I linked it in the e-notes this past week. We also passed a directive or a memorial about our stance on peace and justice in Palestine and Israel. And the dialogue as we deliberated about how to be very clear about our support of Palestine, calling what was happening in Gaza genocide, but also being very clear that we are also to call out and speak against anti-Semitism. Both of those things at the same time. It was very moving, a little bit uncomfortable at times too. Incredibly powerful statement. If you're looking for a way to talk about Palestine and Israel, read that directive. It was also sent in the e-notes. We also did other things that were more lighthearted, but equally important. Does anyone know what the filioque is? Of the Son, yes. And why does it matter that we voted to remove the filioque from the Nicene Creed? What's that? Reproachment. Relationship? What does reproachment mean? Thank you. Reconciliation. Yes. Thank you, Dave. You just won a Martin Luther bobblehead. Annika, run that to Dave, will you? So there's a schism between the Eastern and Western Church that has been around for literally 1,000 years, perhaps longer, about where the Holy Spirit comes from. Is it the Father and the Son, or just the Father? And because of this division, the Eastern and the Western churches, there was a great schism in the year 1050-something. 54. So the Lutheran World Federation, in conversation with the Eastern Orthodox Church, said, how about we figure out a way to come together on this for the sake of the life of the world? What does that matter to any of us in the pews? I mean, it's a really fun fact. It's a great trivia question. But it points again to the ecumenical relationship, to the call for unity and coming together. There are important things to argue about. And for all of you who are deeply passionate about the Nicene Creed and its words, I'm so glad you're in this church. We heard from the Commission on a Renewed Lutheran Church, a 3-year gathering of faithful from all over the ELCA, talking about how do we stay relevant and grow as an ELCA Lutheran church. We heard reports and presentations from all the partner organizations in the ELCA. Did you know, for example, that the ELCA has a publishing house? If you didn't know, there's books right in front of you from that publishing house, the Spark Bible, the ELW, countless resources of faith. We heard from the deaconess community. Did you know there's 2 rosters in the ELCA, not just pastors, but also deacons, ministers of word and service. We heard from the ELCA Federal Credit Union. If you want to join a federal credit union, I recommend the ELCA. We heard from universities and seminaries, places that are educating the future leaders of our country. There's 7 others, but I don't want to bore you anymore. It was incredible to hear how broad and wide the ELCA's reach is here in our country. The ways that we are educating and acting for justice. Organizations that exist to connect women with one another and men with one another. I would say for me personally, one of the most powerful experiences was hearing from our global church community. Again, that phrase, Lutheran World Federation. We are a part of a grouping of Lutherans from all over the world in 79 countries. So another quiz question. If you had to guess which country in the world has the most Lutherans, what would you guess? Good guess. Norway is at 3 million. Germany's at 10 million. Zimbabwe. Yes, you're getting closer. The countries of Africa, a couple of countries in Africa, have the most Lutherans. There are 12 million Lutherans in Ethiopia. There are 8 million Lutherans in Tanzania. The US has around 5 million, depending on how often churches update their records. Sweden, 5 million. Indonesia, 7 million. Denmark, 4 million. I tell you this list because it's a beautiful reminder of how diverse and gorgeous our Lutheran churches are all over the world. And what is our relationship to them? Our relationship is one of accompaniment. We heard that word, I think, 18 different times a day. The beautiful thing about how the ELCA does relationships and partnerships is that we don't walk into a place and say, oh, we know, we're going to tell you how to be. The ELCA has always been about accompaniment, walking with our global partners, building relationships, learning what they need, being energized by what they know and what they teach us. We have a young adults and global missions program, kind of like Peace Corps, where we send young adults to communities all over the world working for peace and justice, transforming the lives of those young adults. Our presiding bishop, Elizabeth Eaton, has done amazing work during her 12 years of service, growing our interfaith relationships, working for peace and justice across the Abrahamic faiths. We heard from Rick Jacobs, the president of the Reformed Judaism Church. Pardon me, I can't say it right. He spoke to us very passionately again about his relationship with Bishop Eaton and how important it has been over the years for them to be connected. We heard from one of the leaders in the Muslim church. We heard over and over again some of the incredible parts about being in the ELCA, that we are global, that we care for the vulnerable, and we are committed to that. We have Lutheran Social Services in America that partners with health and human services organizations to care for more than 6 million people in the US. There's ELCA World Hunger programs that tackle the root causes of hunger and poverty, Lutheran disaster response. Their video is incredibly touching, talking about how they are present and they stay where disasters happen long after the initial responders have left. You are part of that, Prince of Peace. Your offering dollars, your knowledge, your sharing about this makes a huge difference. This is who we are. We are a church that cares deeply about racial justice ministries, about Amparo, accompanying migrant minors with advocacy and representation. We're an incredible church because we're not just in the walls right here. We're about rolling up our sleeves and getting to work, as one of the taglines says. Living our faith in the world and trying to be a force for good in the world. And finally, perhaps I'm burying the lead, but as Drew said in his kids' sermon, we also elected a new bishop, Bishop Yehiel Curry. We also elected a new secretary of the ELCA, which is the person who's in charge of all the record keeping and the leadership of the church. The presiding bishop is an important person because they are our public face. They are the ones who speak on behalf of the entire ELCA and the federal government. They are the ones who show up and speak out when something terrible happens. They are the ones setting the vision and the strategies for the next 6 years of their time in office. And I would like to close with a video about Bishop-elect Yehiel. And I want to share this video because it was filmed. Part of the filming that you see happened at Churchwide Assembly. This gives you a visual of what the place looked like and also gives you an idea of who he is. So let's watch this video together.
99 valid ballots cast, 400 were needed to elect. The Reverend Yehiel Curry, 562. The Reverend Kevin Strickland, 237.
There is an election.
We had presiding bishops who were men, and we had majority of our bishops and leaders at that time were men. And what we now have seen is, as our presiding bishop, Elizabeth Eaton, ends her work, the Conference of Bishops is majority women. I'm hopeful that if presence matter, that me being here does something for allowing others to consider someone who looks like me or from my community or speaks with an accent or mother tongue isn't English. So hopefully that's what that means. Around 1997, I stumbled into St. Stephen's Lutheran Church on the south side of Chicago. It was a synodically authorized worshiping community, and they was worshiping on Saturdays. I was so excited, I went and told my wife, I said, there's this church on Saturday. She said, Saturday? I took her back, and while I was just enjoying the service, I didn't realize that my wife had grabbed our daughter, Shemaiah, and joined the church that I would become to lead before I even did. I thought to myself, we found our place. And that's the purpose for each and every one of us, to find our place in community, in worship, and in this church. I was a teacher when I first walked into a church that I didn't even realize was Lutheran. I was invited by a friend, and what drew me was the talk of this mentoring program. So part of my vision is really associated with those things we've lifted up as a church that we said we need to do, we're gonna do, and find a way to bring more people to the table so that we might embody it instead of it just being a written document. I'm what a return on your investment looks like. Even if you don't realize it, every time we gave our benevolence to the church, I was just a guy sitting in the pew, had never really learned the language of discernment. I just knew I had this feeling. So when I was a teacher, I was still trying to figure out what this feeling was, and I didn't get it there. And then I became a social worker, and I didn't feel it there. I went in business for myself. I didn't feel it there. It wasn't until I was in the church that I said, I could do this for the rest of my life. I was working in poverty ministry in the outskirts of Chicago in a suburb called Riverdale. And so I was honored to have my name lifted up and ultimately elected to be bishop in 2019. 2024 was, by my peers, elected to be the chair of the Conference of Bishops. And here today, still hard to say, presiding bishop-elect.
In case you didn't understand what Bishop-elect Curry was saying, so there are two paths to become